Hey, everybody, this is the Tell the Truth Sports Radio Show, the college football edition. And I have my correspondent, Chris Stanley, who wrote for SB Nation, South Carolina Gamecock guy. Terrific college football expert. He's going to be on my show. I did an interview with him, but I want to talk about the games first before I do the interview with him. Notre Dame, Alabama. Before I get into Notre Dame, Alabama, and Clemson, Ohio State, a lot of these games come down to a couple of intangibles that you have to factor in. Targeting penalties that could take out a star player if he makes a mistake, and field goal kicking. I do not trust college field goal kickers. I don't care where the ball is. I did just not the most trustworthy. It's not the most trustworthy element in college football. And that could be a factor in a close game. Just keep in mind when you're watching these games. Alabama, Notre Dame. Notre Dame's a 19 point underdog. I think they could cover. I got Alabama winning, but I think Notre Dame could cover. But Michael Mayer, a tight end, baby Grunk, has to make plays. Kylan Williams has to be strong. He's at 1,000-yard rusher. And Javon McKinley's got to make you got to make plays. Notre Dame got three. They were able to get into Clemson's red zone 3 times and came away 3 points. You play Alabama and you get in that red zone 3 times and you come away 3 points, you're going to get slaughtered. That's the recipe for getting destroyed. So on Notre Dame's standpoint, they have to create turnovers, get a strip, do something uncommon to stay in the game. If you stay in the game now, you got a chance with a veteran senior quarterback, Ian Book. The problem is Alabama's ruthless. They're very disciplined. That's what kept them through the COVID-19 situation. Saban has his team so disciplined. You don't see a lot of penalties. You don't see players taking the other opposing team sneaker and throwing it, giving away 15-yard crucial sportsmanlike conduct penalties. You just don't see that. They're disciplined. And they play hard, they play smart, and they execute. The problem Notre Dame is going to have is how do you defend Najee Harris and Devontae Smith? And they have 5-star. I understand they lost their top receiver, but they have 5-star receivers come off the bench to contribute. They have a very good tight end. And Matt Jones is 32 touchdowns, 4 interceptions, throw for almost 4,000 yards. He's an NFL quarterback. I understand they say, well, look who he's throwing to. He's got time because he's got all-American offensive line. He sees the field well. Notre Dame better put pressure on him. Notre Dame's going to get beat. They're going to get beat soundly. But Notre Dame's going to have to make a break. I just think that Notre Dame is sick and tired of hearing how bad they're going to be. And I think they're going to make it a game, but you're not beating Alabama. I just think that they're on a mission. They got one of the best teams in the country. They've improved defensively. They've corrected whatever problems they had earlier. And I would say the Tide's going to roll. They can win by about 14 points in this game. But Notre Dame will battle. I think because they have they're battle tested. They've seen Clemson twice. I think that prepares them for Alabama. But Alabama's a better team. Now, Clemson, Ohio State. I got a funny feeling about this game with Ohio State. Everybody's picking Clemson. Dabo Swinney's comments about them being number 10, Ohio State never beating Clemson in their history. Ohio State losing every year, whether it's Boyd at quarterback or Trevor Lawrence last year where they threw that game away, where they had the game won. Or Deshaun Watson just destroying Ohio State. And then you go back to Woody Hayes in 78, I believe, where he punched the Clemson linebacker and he got fired after that. It's just a bad history with Clemson. And I have a feeling Phil's going to have a good game. He's at 15 touchdowns, 5 interceptions. I wouldn't touch him in the pros. This is Tell the Truth Radio, and this is a little harsh. I wouldn't touch him. I don't care what kind of criticism I get. I don't touch, I'll say, quarterbacks. Sermon is a nice little runner, man. and they're going to need him. They're going to need that balance. They always have good receivers. Garrett Wilson's another good one, 5 touchdowns. The thing about Clemson is Lawrence is spectacular, and Lawrence ran 5 design runs last year. Every time Ohio State wasn't prepared. So I think they're going to be prepared. ATN is a terrific guy, not only running, catching, and they don't have the spectacular receivers they've had, the big receivers, but they have Amari Rodgers, he's a big-time player, who's a big-time playmaker. And Lawrence is going to sling the field down. He's got championship experience. But Ohio State, this is going down to the wire. Whichever team misses field goals, whichever team drops crucial passes or fumbles, whoever makes the big mistake is going to lose. This is just an even game. Clemson should win, but I give Ohio State a chance to win this game. This is an even game. I'm calling it even. I'm not even going to pick a winner because of the Ohio State, the revenge factor, and Dabo running his mouth. That's a little extra motivation. But I'm not picking against Trevor Lawrence either. So this is a pick 'em game. And whoever makes the big mistake is going to be the team that loses. Now I have Chris Stanley. He worked for SB Nation, covering the South Carolina Gamecocks, and the SEC expert and a terrific college football expert. I have him on next.
Fawned and praised how great LSU was last year and all of these statistical marvels. Alabama sneakily has been just as good as they have, as LSU was last year, if not a little bit better. They have got an absolutely ridiculous offense that no one has been able to stop. They still have a top 10 defense. And outside of Alabama having special team snafus and turning the ball over, I don't see an avenue for Notre Dame to win at all, or even keep it within 10 points.
This is what makes Alabama great. During this time where you have all these issues with COVID and players out and players not focusing and all that, because of Nick Saban's insanely disciplined process and how disciplined they are, that gives them an edge over just about every other college team.
Yeah, and they also have the best players.
Yeah, they got 5-star players.
Don't forget that. I mean, they just have an asinine amount of talent all over the field. And Steve Sarkisian has made a legitimate difference in the offensive scheme that's, similar to what Lane Kiffin was running when he was the offensive coordinator at Alabama. He knows how to get guys like Devonta Smith open, and Mac Jones knows where to put the ball. And if you want to drop all your guys back in coverage, well, they can run the ball with Najee Harris at 7 yards pop. There's been no one so far who's been able to stop Alabama. They have a top 10 defense. This is a good Notre Dame team. Like, don't get that twisted. Like, I know they got killed by Clemson. It's really hard to beat Clemson twice. I'll just put that out there. This is a good Notre Dame team. And there's a lot of talk about, they didn't deserve to be in. Well, then who? Who over them right now that you've seen would pose a bigger threat to Alabama?
You know what messed Texas A&M up? When Florida lost to LSU and Marco Wilson's shoe throwing took away their argument, because Florida lose to LSU takes away from their resume of them beating Florida, and that kind of hurt. I did want to see Texas A&M, but that loss, that paved the way for Notre Dame to get in, and now they're playing Alabama again.
Well, Texas A&M also lost by 28 points to Alabama.
Yeah.
Don't forget that part of it too. What part of that game made you think that A&M had the capacity to make up 28 points within a second matchup? And nobody beats Nick Saban twice in the same season, or beats him the second time around. And you could have thrown Oklahoma in there. Like, you could have thrown. I'd love to send Cincinnati in.
Cincinnati was my next choice. Yeah.
Cincinnati, it would have been a great story. They would have also gotten their heads caved in by Alabama,
goodness, yeah.
But it would have been a more fun story. But really, there are 3 teams in college football this year. There's Alabama, there's Clemson, there's Ohio State, and then there's a big drop-off to Florida, Oklahoma, Notre Dame, BYU, Georgia, and Cincy. And then there's another, you could probably throw North Carolina and Iowa State in there too if you wanted to. But then there's another big drop off after them. So there's two very clear tiers. There are the three absolute playoff teams, and then this weird mishmash of very good teams that have significant flaws. So it really didn't matter who you put in number 4. And that's just my opinion.
All right, Ohio State and Clemson. You think Ohio State's going to have a lot. All my life, I've never seen Ohio State beat Clemson in my entire life. And I want to go back all the way back to the 70s. I haven't even seen it. Ohio State's probably sick of losing to Clemson. They play them every year. They get beat by them every year. Dabo's talked about their number 11, so they're upset at that. They should have beat Clemson last year. So do you think the revenge factor is going to help?
You would think so, and you are correct, Ron. You've never seen Ohio State beat Clemson because it has literally never happened before.
Wow.
In the history of human civilization. They are 0-4 against Clemson. And this Ohio State team, in my opinion, is not as good as the team that played Clemson last year.
Yep.
Now, I'll also say I don't think this Clemson team is as good as the Clemson team from last year either. So I think both of these teams are slightly worse than they were last year, but they're still legitimate top 3 teams. I think both offenses, you could do the Spider-Man meme pointing at each other. They're basically the same unit.
Yes.
They have 2 top 10 quarterbacks. They have 2 really good running backs. They have good receivers on the field. The defenses are both legitimate top 10 units. I know Ohio State's been gashed a couple times this year, but I would argue that was against pretty good offensive units like Indiana. The only discrepancy I see between the two teams is Ohio State has been very suspect on special teams this year. And Clemson has weapons that can exploit that. And in a game where I see pretty even matchups on offense and defense, I think that's something that can tip the scales. I think Clemson wins this game on marginal stuff like that. But I would expect a similar game to what you saw last year. It was very close, and Clemson comes down to
I want you to think about something. The ability of defensive coordinator of Clemson, Brent Venables' adaptability to see what's going on. They don't play a certain defense. He tries to take away your strength, and he's very good. That's why he's handsomely paid, by the way, to stay at Clemson. And his ability to see something in game is a key, I think, too.
Yeah, and also don't forget, and I don't know if this is actually going to play a factor in the game, Tony Elliott, Clemson's offensive coordinator, is not traveling to this game.
I heard.
He tested positive for COVID. I think he's asymptomatic, but he's not traveling. And I've seen some sites try to make something out of this. I don't think it's going to make that big of a difference because they have the QB's coach calling the plays, and he's been there since 2015, so I don't really think that's much of a drop-off. I think the big thing I'm going to be watching is Justin Fields. Because Justin Fields has had 2 games this year. He has absolutely crapped his pants.
I know.
Well, I mean, the most recent one against Northwestern, he looked terrible against Northwestern. And Northwestern has a really good defense. Their offense is hot garbage, but you can make an argument Northwestern had the second best defense in the country this year.
Yeah.
And Clemson's defense is probably a top 10 unit. So is Justin Fields going to look similar? Because if he does, this game's not going to be close.
And I want to tell you something. This is the wrong time for Justin Fields to be messing up. If you watch Dwayne Haskins, you look at the list of Ohio State quarterbacks that don't do well in NFL. NFL scouts are like, buyer beware. And I'm more of a Zach Wilson guy as the second pick. I'm in love with this guy, with his brain and his ability to throw, and just his overall intangibles. I like him better than I like Fields from BYU.
You're in the same club as I am. I love Zach Wilson. I think he is excellent. I think he is one of the more accurate passers we've seen in college football in the past decade. He has got the mobility to go with it too. And he has been able to do it against pretty much anybody. And he doesn't have games like Justin Fields does. And you can make the argument Justin Fields plays against much better competition, but I've seen Zach Wilson play some pretty tough teams too.
Coastal Carolina's good.
Coastal Carolina was good this year. Coastal Carolina was a legitimate, if you want to be objective, they were a legitimate top 20 team.
Yeah, and they played them on short notice. It wasn't like you had all year to prepare for them.
Yeah, and I mean, really, that game came down to a Coastal Carolina player making a tackle 3 yards from the goal line, or else we're talking about BYU completely differently.
Yeah. Yeah, definitely. Al, before I let you go, I want to give you a playoff scenario. I propose that there's not 8, but 6 teams. 2 teams get the first bye, the top 2 teams, and then you have 3 versus 6 and 4 versus 5. So you would have had Ohio State versus Cincinnati, and then Florida versus A&M in a rematch. And then you have 4 or 5 play 1. And then I think that's what's going to come down to. I think they're going to – I know they want 8, but I like 6. I don't want too many. And then and reward the top 2 teams and give them buys and then play the semis. What do you think?
I like 6. I'd like to see 8. Heck, I'd like to see 16. I think there's an issue that's going on right now, and you saw it last night if you watched Florida, Oklahoma, where – you've got a lot of national media members complaining about players opting out. Like, it was very obvious Kyle Pitts was missed by Florida last night.
Oh, my gosh.
And if – let's just say you have 16 spots in the playoff. These are legitimately meaningful games that it's going to be hard for guys to sit out of. I'm not saying they don't sit out of them, but it's a lot harder for Kyle Pitts to say, I'm out, I need to go prepare for the draft, if he's playing in a playoff game. And therefore, you get a more competitive Florida-Oklahoma scenario. Now, maybe 16 teams is too many. However, I want to see more meaningful postseason games in college football because I don't want to see Christian McCaffrey not play in the postseason because he didn't play in the postseason. Or Kyle Pitts, or, any of these guys who are playing on, top 12-ish ranked teams who I'm not getting to see play in big bowl games. And that's just me as a fan speaking. I don't know if 16
Yeah, how cool would it have been to see Ohio State and Cincinnati play in a playoff game?
Oh, I loved it, dude. I'm all there for it. Like, I want more meaningful college football in my life. And if that means expanding the playoff, then so be it, even if I think it can be a little ridiculous at 16 teams. But I want to see Kyle Pitts play in big games. Like Kyle Pitts, and I'm in love with that guy. Like, that's one of the best weapons we've seen in college football.
He's one of the best tight ends. Yes, the best tight end.
He is so good. And I was robbed of the opportunity to see him tear up Oklahoma last night because he would have if he had played, but he didn't because at the end of the day, the Cotton Bowl doesn't mean anything to Kyle Pitts. And why should it? It's just another trophy. He has the potential to be a top 10 draft pick next year and potentially getting himself hurt for a non-national championship isn't worth it. And I don't fault kids for that. Make the games more meaningful.
Yes.
More playoff games make for more meaningful games.
Definitely. How would you like to see him line up with Justin Herbert with the LA Chargers? Woo! That would be great. I know you got to take care of the future Gamecock. Is that a future Gamecock or that's a Clemson Tiger?
He's a future Gamecock, if I have anything to say about it. He also has lots of thoughts on the playoff, and he just wanted to get his takes in.
All right, that's cool, man. Shoot. But hopefully next year we'll be at the games. I do have access to some SEC hookups, so hopefully we'll meet out there. I want to see the South. I'm sick of New Jersey. I want to see your Southern food and all that good stuff. If it's 32 teams, maybe my Rutgers Scarlet Knights and your South Carolina Gamecocks can get in.
Maybe. You poor New Jersey people, you don't even get Trevor Lawrence now.
I know. And I've covered the Giants because I'm local. I don't even get to do any interviews with them unless I have to go to Jacksonville. Oh, I was mad.
Oh, jeez.
Yeah, man. But, listen, Zach Wilson, I'll take. Be smart. Take him.
He's probably going to be the second pick. I mean,
there's nothing wrong with that.
The Jets are a godforsaken franchise, but they're probably going to pick Zach Wilson. That would be the move.
Yeah, but you know what they could do? They could end up trading him to my Steelers, and then he replaces Ben, and then they continue the long tradition of winning. They could do something that's stupid.
I don't put it past them.
Hey, man, listen, thanks a lot. You were the best as usual. We got to do this for the championship weekend.
For